Hi, good evening. Welcome to Off the Cuff here on MX24. And we are very happy to have you here. Coming up in tonight's edition of the show, well, tragedy strikes Ghana football. 6 dead, 24 injured as a team, a juvenile team in the Ashanti region gets involved in an accident today. We are going to look deeper into what happened and exactly what can be done under the circumstances. And then we go off to Europe as usual. And there are a number of things to look at. There were mistakes, there were lots of goals, poor decisions in the English Premier League. In the Italian Serie A, everybody's wondering whether the Pirlo project will work for Juventus. And in France, there's a surprise leader at the top of the Liga board. As usual, you can join us on all our social media platforms because this show is interactive and we'd love to hear what you are thinking about concerning the biggest stories in sports. Welcome yet again. We are going for our first break. When we come back, there's a lot to talk about over the next 60 minutes. See you shortly. Welcome back. If you are joining us for the very first time, this is MX24 and this is On the Cuff as we bring you insight into the biggest story in the world of sports. My name is Samuel Bartels and tonight I'm joined by two of my colleagues. I'm always excited when I see them because of the insight and the incisiveness of their comments. The lawyer. Hi, Eva.
Hi, Sammy.
The
Good
banker.
to see you.
Yao
Sammy,
Yeah,
good to see you.
Good to see you. We would be talking about what's happened in Europe. I know you have emotional connections to a lot of clubs, and people didn't have a happy weekend because of the outcomes of matches. We'll have a trip across Europe as we look at the biggest stories from the world of sports in that part of the world. But we are going to start locally and on a rather tragic note because there are 6 players who have died. These are players between the ages of 13 and 17 because of an accident that occurred in the Ashanti region. Members of a football team, the academy in Offenso municipality of the Ashanti region, who died after the Kia Peugeot vehicle they were traveling in veered off the road and plunged into the river Offin. 24 of the players are currently receiving treatment. Whew, not a very good one for Ghana football, is it?
Not the kind of story you want to hear, especially when it concerns juveniles.
Yeah.
You know, that's one life too many to lose in one fell swoop like that. And it brings to the fore so many issues, the states of our roads, you know, accidents and fatalities on our roads continue to be a major source of concern for us as a nation. So again, it brings that into sharp focus for us to be mindful of. It also brings to the fore management of our football clubs. You know, so you're wondering, what was the purpose of this trip? Was it necessary? Was this an avoidable incident? And from all that I've gathered so far, they went on a registration exercise and all of that. And you're wondering, I mean, yes, the 21st century, football is moving forward. We cannot create alternatives, you know, electronic registration, online registration, to avoid some of these unnecessary legwork and trips that could
These are
easily
key
degenerate
questions.
into.
Yeah, you also obviously have questions on your mind, don't you?
I do. I mean, as Eva said, why are we having to do manual registration? Why is it that we are not replicating what the FA has with the TMS, what the Premier League clubs, and they log in the players, bio data in? If you have to register them, use that system. Get them if it's they have to upload. Is it if it's not a passport because they are underage, whatever, if it's a birth certificate, they need to upload it, which can be verified, and then you cut out. And even the bigger question is, why are we registering now?
Why are we registering now?
Because, I mean, the president has not opened, unless maybe we are preparing for the president to make an announcement. Maybe they know something we don't know.
Yeah, let me try and get some answers over the line. I've been joined by 2 members of Ghana's juvenile football fraternity. One from the Ashanti region, Samuel Otu, who is a member of the juvenile committee. I think he's indeed the chairman of the juvenile committee there. Then we have Michael Fiaduse, who is a member of the Greater Accra juvenile football fraternity. And perhaps they should be able to give me answers. First, let me start with you. Samuel Otu, you were part of the GFA delegation that went to Offenso to see the team earlier today. Well, I seem to have lost him, so let me switch to Michael. who is a member of the Greater Accra Juvenile Football. Michael, thank you very much for joining us. Can you tell us more beyond what has been reported within the media scene concerning this accident? What more do you know?
Thank you, Sammy. Yes, some battles, yeah?
Yes, Mike.
Thank you. It's rather unfortunate we are speaking for the first time on this sad note. Yes, I would love to leave the narrations or updates on what happened yesterday to my brother Samuel too, since he was close to the scene. And at least he was there, even though the president, the ODESCO, delegated some people, including a member of the NJC, Mr. Kamarat of Asukwa Deportivo.
Yes.
Yeah.
But Michael, let me just ask you though, the obvious questions from my friends in the studio here is, why did they go to register? Is there some ongoing national registration for juvenile football that we don't know about? And if so, why is such registration taking place at this time?
Yes. I hope you are all aware of the window opening for registration in Ghana, the football registration in Ghana, or player registration.
For all levels of football?
Yes, you are aware. It started last month.
Okay.
And it's ending on the 13th of next month.
Okay.
So all clubs are doing what they ought to do, awaiting the announcement of the president. Once the window is open, everyone or every stakeholder plays his part. Unlike the divisions, that's the other categories. The juvenile is a unique brand. It's regulated in a way. We first do registration. What we first do is we do what we call screening before we engage in the uploading, as your colleagues or the other members in the studio are saying.
So the screening being the physical examination of the players, right?
Yes. That is first done. And then before those who are okayed are uploaded into the system. So it was just one of the phases of the registration. And it's very necessary. It is something for anybody associated with juvenile football will tell you that had been it. You first have to go through that before we upload. With the division, with the other categories, nobody regulates age. If you look at the even international level, the under 17, or let's say the most junior team, they go through what we call
MRI.
The MRI. You understand? They go through this exercise.
So I'm taking it, Michael, what I get is that for you, the documents are not enough to prove the ages of a juvenile player. They have to show up physically to be screened before you are sure that they are the ages that they claim to be.
They play in categories. We play U13. We play U15. We play U17. And so, yes, you come with this document. Those documents are just one of the things we consider. But then they play in categories. So certainly we put them in this category before we start our competitions.
Okay. Michael, just hold on for just a moment. Let me speak to Samuel, your colleague from the Ashanti region. Samuel, earlier on today, you were part of a GFA delegation that went to visit the injured players in hospital. Can you bring us up to speed with what the situation is at the moment?
Well, thank you, Sammy, for having me on the show. This morning, the delegation from the FA, headed by Fred Achi, our Federal Champon, a school member. We went to the screening. From there, we went to St. Patrick Hospital, where 10 of the players are under admission over there. And from there, they refer some of the players also to Namong SDA Hospital, where 10 players also were there. We went there, and fortunately for us, we were told that 4 out of the 10 has been discharged. So they were 11 with 6 guys. From there, we visited the families of the deceased players, and 3 of them were Muslims. So as at time we were leaving Namon, they were buried before we left there. And then from there also we went to Finsu to visit one of the victims over there. And then as a young guy, almost about 10 years, I too was also responding to treatment. Before finally we went to Konfanochi to visit one of the players over there. Initially, 4 of the players were referred to Konfanochi emergency. So when we went there, the doctors told us 2 is at the theater, then 1 was also at the ward. So they allow us to visit the one at the ward, and he was also responding to treatment. So far, this morning, this was how our visit went from Kumasi to Ofenso, Namon, back to Manochi Hospital.
Isaac, I saw images of the bus that was involved in the accident. How many players were on that bus? And were the numbers above the capacity that these buses usually take?
Yes, I mean, the number was above the capacity. There were 32 players on board, plus the coach, and then the driver and his mate.
Isaac,
So making the number 35.
Is this normal? And I'll come to Michael as well, because I don't know what sort of resources are available to team owners at the juvenile level, but I know it's usually a hassle. Under what conditions do these youngsters travel from match to match and from center to center for things like screening?
Normally, like what happened yesterday, they came with 207, a big bus, which was able to convey all of them to the center, the registration center. But after the registration, instead of them to wait for their bus, they just went in for that mini bus, and that was the whole thing. At the same time, the driver was speeding. He wanted to do some overtaking, and he saw a big truck coming, so he have to come back to his lane, and by that doing, the accident occurred. So I think we have to learn about, or we have to caution our coaches or the club owners. It's been a canker, because most of the matches you see almost about 30, 35 players in an oven for a match, which carries under 13, under 15, and under 17, which is not encouraging. All due to poor financing background of the clubs.
So, Michael, what can we do? Because obviously we are not investing enough in grassroots football. The system doesn't seem to be very fluid at the moment. What can we do to prevent these from happening?
That is directed to me, right?
Yes, Michael.
As my brother said, maybe we learned lessons from this. This is not a regular occurrence, I will say. Speaking from where I am, this is not regular occurrence, but you see, sometimes these things happen at the blind side of the administrators. But we can only pray that we get the right resources, or logistics, so we can better handle these issues in the future. A lot had been said after this accident, but I do not want to delve into just anything that I've heard, and we want to answer the questions as they are. Going forward, I think we'll learn our lesson. We'll look at it. Is still early. We are now gathering the pieces. I've also heard other lessons of, and I thank God my brother Sammy had a hot, let me say, court have heard already. I think he's saying the same thing.
Okay.
So it was something that happened, and nobody was there. But he's now telling us that they went with a bigger bus, and maybe after the exercise, this happened. Nobody knew this was going to happen on the way, so I can only say sorry.
Thanks, Michael. Samuel, I'll let you have the final word. This happened in Ashanti region. That is your territory. So going forward, what will change? What lessons have you guys learned from this, and what are you going to change in terms of the system, even the registration, the traveling, and the physical screening exercise?
Well, Sammy, in my term of administration, this is my second year in office. I've tried to expand registration centers. Like a team from Edra formally travel from Edra and come and register at Mampong, which is a huge distance. Now I break it. Edra people will have their registration at Edra. Mampong will also have it at Mampong. Then Pabri East will also have it there. Like today, we were supposed to be in Konongo to register teams around Konongo, and then teams around Achuma Wabeja. So from what has happened, we have learned a lesson. Now we will go closer to the teams to do their registration. But we are appealing to the club officials, the team managers. They should try to stop packing our case like sardines for a match. We will try to monitor the movement of our clubs during the registration and then matches so that such thing will not happen again in Ghana football.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much for making time to join us here on Off the Cuff on MX24. Thank you very much, Michael Fiaduse, and then thank you very much, Samuel Otu. They are both members of Ghana's juvenile football fraternity. Michael operates in the Greater Accra region, and Samuel is the chairman in the Ashanti region. It's quite harrowing, but there are obviously big questions not answered. So now we know it was a smaller bus. There were 32 players who were fitted into a bus that shouldn't take even more than 20.
I mean, so as I said, it's a microcosm of the issue that we have been grappling with on our roads and how we manage our transportation system and all of that.
People's children are going back and forth.
And again, I ask, was this necessary?
Yeah.
This physical examination.
The screening.
Screening. Who does that?
They say that it's to prevent cheating.
No, what's the scientific basis for that?
So you use your eye to determine
Exactly.
that somebody is 13.
So they say that someone is diminutive, and so that person is indeed 13. This person looks too tall for a 13-year-old, and so is disqualified.
You know, it would have been easier if they said they were bringing them for an MRI test.
That's the point.
They would know it's scientific enough.
If you're using, the MRI, then we can understand why they have to perhaps go there, because then you say that there's only one machine somewhere, so that's why they have to go there. But for a physical examination, by
eyeballing.
Who is the authority there determining by virtue of your physical looks that you even though you possess a certificate which attests to the fact that you are 13-year-old, you are not.
Oh yeah, it's perhaps an indication of how rotten the whole system is. To the extent that we don't even believe in birth certificates anymore.
No, I think that, you see, it's just an archaic way of doing things, and we need to move forward from it. Because clearly you could see the guy knows the problems. He's talking about the fact that he's had to decentralize the...
Yeah.
So you are looking at ways of reducing the travel times. What even prevented them from even going to I'm going to Offensu today. I'm going to physically, if you want to do it, rather than letting people bus to a center.
Yeah, so you be the mobile, go from place to place and register the teams.
And verify if it is. But my issue is, what verification are you going to do? I don't know if his eye has some X-ray scanners in it that he can see.
Meanwhile, all these are students, because we hear that 3 of the players who died come from one school, Offensu State B.
So I think that, you see, going forward, the FA has to step in.
Disregard for human life. It's inexcusable. It's inexcusable.
For him to say that they know that they pack the players in a... He knows this, and they've done nothing to prevent it. In fact,
but you can see this a bit, you see, but the other angle is that nobody really cares about juvenile football. Everybody is talking about elite level. There are, one-man ownership. Somebody who starts an area team it becomes a juvenile team. We've seen that over the years.
Yeah.
And he's the sole financier. He's under the strain, COVID-19. So he puts 32 students.
So
with
Sammy,
players,
I think
in a
that,
small box.
I mean, perhaps the takeaway for me is that it comes at a time where we have the new football administration in place. I mean, so it has its work cut out for it.
Yeah.
This is one area to really focus on and sanitize, bring it up to date, modernize it. We can't continue this way.
Well, speaking of which, I've
continue
just been
this way.
informed that the president has lifted a ban on contact sports. And the Premier League to start on the 30th of October. Teams can now resume training. No spectators at training centers. Only 25% of spectators will be allowed in the stadium. All protocols must be observed.
In fact, the 25% is what is worrying for me. I don't know how they're
I don't have
going
a
to do
problem
it.
with 25%. But the question I'm asking you is, will they be able to insist on the protocols and ensure that everything is in place?
Again, Sammy, it goes back to whatever presentation the Ghana Football Association made to the government. For the government to be convinced that the GFA is ready to oversee the resumption of the league. And I believe that whatever promises were made by the GFA concerning its readiness to oversee the resumption of the league is what the government would hold it to. So the issue would be who monitors to ensure that the protocols are
That's why I would
observed
have
to the letter.
preferred a more gradual thing. We should have started off with no spectators.
Yeah.
See how it goes for a few games.
Yeah.
Then you can then up it up to maybe 10%, and then you are back to go straight 25%.
25% is a bit
In fact,
much.
in Europe and other countries, they are not doing that. Most of them have started with no spec. They are now in Germany. They just
The
allow.
Italians say they are going to allow a
but
thousand
they tried
spectators.
it over a period
Yes.
before they then upscaled it. I think that we are.
You think everything is
going,
rushed?
We are going a bit ahead of ourselves to say observe social distancing. Let's do 25%. It should have been gradual.
At the national level, what we've noticed is that there isn't enough testing going on. I mean, they've relented on the issue of testing now. Are you confident that whatever plan it is that the GFA presented to the government would include enough testing of players?
Well, I hope so, because the proposals I was hearing earlier on didn't really add up. Testing twice once at the beginning and once at the end of the it didn't make any sense.
Unless players are going to
are,
become.
how are players even going to are players going to be in isolation? Are they going to go back to their families? Are we going to be testing in Uganda? I was just reading Asha tweeting about Uganda testing players every 2 weeks, and the players are supposed to be in isolation. So I don't know how we are going to do it, because if you test a player, he plays a game, you test him, and he goes back to his family. It means that if he picks it up in the game, he's exposing his family.
exposed.
I don't know how we are. Seriously, I don't
surprised.
understand it.
Yes, I mean, we are even more constrained logistically. So I would have thought that we would not try to reinvent the wheel. Others are doing it in different jurisdictions, in more advanced jurisdictions, without spectators. We cannot adopt the bubble system because I don't even think we don't have what it takes. We don't have the logistics. We don't have what it takes. But testing is cardinal. It's something we cannot do away with that at this time. It's something that must be a regular. It has to be second nature now. Because as Yao said, these players will come and play, go back home after interacting with their colleagues and hugging upon scoring goals and all of that. Go back to their families.
They're exposed.
They're exposed.
So people got thrown out
So
of the
I would
English
be
camp.
I would be delighted to get the fine details of how the Ghana Football Association, organizers of the league, are going to roll out the resumption, how they intend to implement it. That would give everybody some comfort.
So we'd like to look at this with a lot of cautious optimism, and we hope that the Ghana Football Association would have learned from mistakes made by other people, would have learned from the best practices across the world to ensure that there's no second wave as we've seen in other parts of the world. If you're watching us live on the digital channels, on Facebook and on Twitter, this is Off the Cuff here on MX24. We're going for a break. When we come back, there are lots to talk about from Europe. So the weekend to forget for some teams. Some people's title credentials have been weighed, have been measured. and they have been found wanting. But the devil is in the details. So we'll talk about all the key issues when we come back after this break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is Off the Cuff here on MX24. We've been looking at some of the biggest stories in the local scene. We've been talking about that accident which occurred in the Ashanti regions, the lessons that we've learned and what has to be changed going forward. Well, we're on a flight now and we are landing in the UK for the English Premier League over the weekend. If you are a Manchester United fan, it's time to look away. Because after a week's delay when Manchester United finally took to the field, Manchester United fans were expecting an exhibition of title credentials. What they got was a chastening defeat at the hands of Crystal Palace. Well, there's a silver lining to every dark cloud, and perhaps that silver lining is Manchester United's newfound Maradoni van der Beek, who got his opening goal, but it wasn't enough to save Manchester United. Actually, the star of the show was a Manchester United reject, Wilfred Zaha. Quite a match.
Oh yes, it was a great return for him. It was painful to watch him.
But what went wrong for your team?
And I'm glad that Ed Woodward was there.
What went
watching.
wrong for your team?
Everything. We were ponderous. We were lethargic. We played without any spark. We were rusty. There was nothing at stake. We played without any tactical direction.
I saw a lot of tiki-taka going on, a lot of passes.
For what? What was square passes, which yielded no results?
Was Man U rusty because of the week's delay?
I guess so. A bit of inactivity. Generally, some teams have had the opportunity to be a little more.
Let me just break into that for a while and just talk about that penalty kick. A lot of people on Twitter were expecting a Jordan goal. They said it would cap a very fine performance. He got that penalty. Very casual.
Jordan is very good.
Lame. I was shocked.
Jordan is somebody I'll put my house on the ticket and say Jordan will score 10 out of 10. He will score a penalty.
So, what was that?
I don't know.
I think
don't know what
the
hit him.
occasion got to him.
He was himself disappointed at the time that he was taking.
Were you
off.
surprised that Zaha took over the penalty taking duties? Was it a sign he didn't have the confidence? Because
No,
knowing Jordan, I thought he would have
took it.
insisted on taking the second.
No, I think
Well, but
Zaha just took it.
I think Jordan himself was disappointed at his output, so he probably decided to sit out on that
Back to
one.
Manchester United.
Manchester United.
Where lies the problem? Before I go to you.
Everything and our defense, and I think Harry Maguire is the biggest con.
He's the most
of
expensive
decade.
defender
I'm
in the
telling
Premier
you,
League.
that's the biggest scam. That buy, and Lindelof, my goodness. What was he doing on the pitch? 2 goals.
He had a hand in all the goals.
Exactly, all goals. All the
That's
goals.
a dreadful day for him.
It was just a total disaster on the day for Manchester United. Very disappointing performance. Sometimes you can lose a game, but you know that you gave it your best shot and the result didn't quite reflect the work. This wasn't one of those days. It was just
but
a
it
bad
wasn't
day.
all about Manchester United, though. This is the second straight season that Crystal Palace have beaten Manchester United at Old Trafford.
And it was so obvious. Crystal Palace have a set way. Roy Hodgson has a set way he plays. His teams away from their home always sit back and play on the counter-attack. Last season, he did the same thing to Manchester United, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. So going into this game, you knew, anybody who has followed football knew that was the same way Crystal Palace was going to play. So it was up to Ole to break them down. And clearly, for the past 2.5 seasons, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has been there. He struggles to break teams down. So it means that there's a problem. He doesn't set his teams up well. And it's all sterile possession. You look at the possession stats, 83%, 90%.
It's death by 1,000
Yeah,
passes
but it's just sideways, backward, and they were too slow. And if you listen to Donny van de Beek doing it, he said, look, training was good. You expect to beat these teams. And to beat these teams, you have to move the ball quickly.
Quicker. Yeah.
And, yes, they didn't have preseason. They didn't have... Some of them just returned. Someone like Bruno Fernandes, wife got a baby. He just got back over the weekend. He's hardly played. Pogba had corona.
Yeah.
He was out. So, yes, there are excuses. But on any day, if you want to be a top 4 team, at home, you have to beat Crystal Palace.
Well, Ibai says they can only get stronger after this. That was
How
an
are they
off
gonna
day. They
get
will get
stronger?
stronger.
How?
You don't believe in this project?
No, I don't. Well, for some of the players, I know Bruno Fernandes, Pogba, they can have a good day. Fernandes, I'm expecting to pick up eventually. But we have serious deficits, especially in defense.
That's exactly what Gary
That's
Neville
something that
says.
you can't easily paper
He
over.
says Man U doesn't need Sancho. Man U needs good defenders,
That's the
solid
point.
Not
defenders.
just good defenders. I think that they need good tactics.
Good
a
tactics.
good
That-
tactical brain.
You see, you don't necessarily need to have the best players to win a game. The way you set your team up is the first way to win a game.
So quite clearly, you don't have a lot of confidence in
I
Ole
think that
Gunnar
he
Solskjaer.
needs help. I don't know.
Well, let's talk about
I
another
said I don't have confidence
another
in
young
him. Last week I
hotshot
said it.
coach. Yeah, and this weekend has had quite a number of goals. Just this afternoon, the top liner in the Premier League, Chelsea versus Liverpool, 2-0 to Liverpool. Yeah, it's easy to say that it was a red card, but it looks like familiar feelings from Chelsea, especially in the goalpost.
Oh, yes. Kepa. Unbelievable. You know, that second money goal especially. I mean, what was he thinking? And I'm just wondering, you know, some of these things just make you just take a knock on your confidence, and it's difficult for you to come back from some of these blips. I'm just wondering how he's going to recover. Yeah, I mean, they've started already, the fan base and all of that.
Did that goal
Everybody.
make a difference, Yao? If
None-
that goal hadn't come, would Liverpool?
Well,
I mean, they had a man,
No, I
an
think,
extra man.
I
They had
think
an
if you look
advantage.
at Klopp was smart.
They were
As soon as they went 10, he took off Henderson, brought Thiago on, so that to keep possession, move possession quickly. That was a master stroke by Klopp. But my issue is that Chelsea's feelings have been obvious from last season. Last season, their defense was about the third worst in the EPL. I mean, they've brought Thiago Silva and things. But they need, I think Lampard, again, back to how he sets teams up. They need to look at the way they set teams up.
So again, similar symptoms as
Well,
Manchester
yes, I
United,
think that he
isn't
need,
it?
maybe with Thiago, maybe he'll get
Yeah.
more authority at the back. He can control the back
Maybe.
wall. But I think that Chelsea in itself, they didn't play well today.
Two bad decisions at the back. Marcus Christensen, only God knows
And then
what he was
Kepa.
thinking.
But even going
And then
forward,
Kepa.
I think that they were a little bit short. I don't know. Havertz is not.
But somehow they could have put something out.
Yeah,
of
because
this game. They had a penalty.
Werner had chances. They had a penalty. Kante got into a good position and forgot that he could shoot and brought the ball back.
penalty and missed it.
And they had a penalty and missed it. So yes, maybe it's a project. I mean, last week we said it that buying players is different from building a team. It takes
Especially
a while.
when you have had such a short preseason.
Yes, it takes a while. So you will not see the real Chelsea till maybe about November, December, when they've had time to know each other
The
again.
question is, would that be enough time for the coach to keep
Well,
it short? The time is not the issue. It's
But I mean,
it's
but
whether
you
they think
expect
you
the
should.
Liverpool-
It's a league in which you don't get much time to find your feet.
But
And
it's a
so-
strange season, actually.
and
so you never know.
and having expended so much funds, a lot is expected in returns.
But-
you still have fresh players who need to find their feet.
But
and I
Liverpool,
think
on the
that's
other
after
hand, 2
two
out
years.
of 2 in the title
Liverpool is-
defense.
No,
Thiago in the middle.
you see, last week shook them. We were here last week and I said that Liverpool's major problem is not their first 11, 12. It's actually strength in depth. And when Leeds did that thing to them last week, even though they won, they realized that no, they need to upgrade their team. Immediately, they go and buy Thiago, they go and buy Diego Horta, and they need a centre-back.
Well, the champions are looking good so far, but we haven't seen one more pretender to the throne. The champions from 2 seasons ago, Manchester City, are yet to take to the field. Well, we have seen other teams, though, in a very high-scoring weekend. Everton are looking quite good under Carlo Ancelotti with the luxury players they have brought in, and they were 5-2 winners over the weekend. 5-2 winners over the weekend. And everybody is talking about James.
Oh,
Eva.
yes. He's really making a lot of difference. You know, you have that one player who becomes the catalyst for the team. Everything revolves around him now. Everything good going forward for Everton revolves around Rodriguez, and that's a super buy for a team like that.
People are, looking at him and just holding their breath and wondering whether he'll be consistent throughout, because we've seen this before. I mean, since his Monaco days, especially at Real Madrid, he was unable to string together successive performance of the same level. But then there are also those who are saying that in a relatively more mediocre team, he probably would step out and exert his authority.
Whoa, and you see, you know, people are saying he won't be able to function in the Premiership because he's not fast.
People
But
still
he's a
making those
technician.
arguments.
I mean, if you look at David Silva, is one of the best players to have played the EPL. He's
and
not
they said
fast.
physically he wasn't going
He's
to
not
survive in the
fast.
Premier League.
He's not. But James is in a similar mold to David Silva, as in not fast, but he's a technician. What he does with the ball and the football brain, the speed of thought, and the way he will play the game is brilliant. And the players are thriving. People like Calvert-Lewin are so happy because now you know that when you get into a certain position, the ball will find you.
And
not
it
you
shows.
struggling to get the ball.
Calvert-Lewin scoring the
Yeah,
first hat-trick
his
of
hat-trick, yeah.
of his senior
He's having
career.
a good season so far.
Well, he is.
He is having a good season so far.
But you see, the star of the Everton team now is Alan, who is screening the defense
That's
and
what
giving
Kante
these
used to
guys the
do,
opportunity
because
to
now
do.
he's giving them the platform for them to go for it because they know that the back. And last season, Everton had an issue with their midfield. It wasn't a functional midfield. And Ancelotti said that, look, football is not only about going forward, it's also about defending. That's why he bought Doucouré, he bought Alan. Immediately, he stabilized the midfield. That's good thinking.
Well, talk about a great escape, and that's what happened to us now. For long periods, they were very normal against a surprisingly impressive West Ham side who had lost their first game against Newcastle United and now to prove a point. For a long period, it was 1-1, and then the two feuding parties from the warm-up before the
Last week.
Fulham game, Danny Ceballos and then Eddie Nketiah combined to get Arsenal out of jail.
Yes. I mean, talk about doing all the talk on the field.
Yeah.
You know, and it was a sight to behold. It was good to see that they had put all those differences aside and were working for the team.
This wasn't the height that Arteta has taken this team, but in the end, they managed to get over the line.
Well, you know, that's football. There are some days that you don't have your best games, but the hallmark of a good team is when you're even having a bad game, you win. And that's what Arteta is bringing to the team. So there's a lot of optimism amongst Arsenal fans, even though I'd advise them to tone it down a bit.
This is Arsenal,
yeah,
you know.
we know.
This is Arsenal.
But I mean, there are good signs. Arteta seems to know what he's doing, and that's what's good. At least when you see a coach who knows what it's about, it's refreshing for the fans. So it's good. It's good.
At least now you see that it's more organized. They are grinding out results,
Yeah.
even if it's not too pleasing
And tactically,
to the eye.
there's certainty and
Yes.
fluidity. You see
Exactly.
Bukayo Saka come from wing-back position into an
And
inside
Saka
center.
was very
Yeah,
impressive
they're not. They're
for
not.
them yesterday.
Yeah, they're
Saka,
not conceding
very
a lot of goals, so that's good. And that's how you win trophies and you win tournaments.
Well, the debate around one man always seems to be whether he's got it or he hasn't got it anymore. And he would never win that argument. And after about 44 minutes of the game, people were beginning to write his obituary and say that this is what he said, that he is bad news for Tottenham Hotspur. That was a Mourinho story until after 45 minutes when Son Heung-min just turned things around. And, the statistics were quite impressive. Harry Kane assisting 4 goals, all the Son goals, and then topping it up with a goal. We saw 2 halves of Tottenham. The drab Tottenham and the impressive attacking-minded Tottenham. Which of them is really Mourinho?
Well, the second half Mourinho is the Mourinho of the first Chelsea.
why aren't we seeing this more
first coming
consistently?
at Chelsea. That was the kind of Mourinho that impressed everybody and wowed everybody. The Mourinho who could read the game very well and come back and change it for a result that everybody expected. So that was a second half Mourinho that we saw in that game that Tottenham played. But it was
for me, I think that
mesmeric.
Ralph Hasenhuttl and his technical team need to be lashed.
That high line, eh?
They conceded the same goal 6 times.
But when you're
the one
pushing-
was disallowed
Yeah.
6 times. I mean,
But you can't play with a high line
No,
and,
they
and
say
not
you
expect that
fool me
players
once,
like...
shame on you. You fool me twice. I don't know. I don't get it. How can you be playing? Mourinho is a master at the counter-attacking game, and you play a high line, and he has shown me. He gets the midfielder gets the ball. The first ball he gets is
Quick
play
release.
it over the top to
So
Son.
he simply played into
So why
Mourinho's
don't you
hand,
drop
right?
your back line just a few meters back to deal with the counter attack?
persistence.
And you do that for 6 times. If I was a chairman, I'm sure I'll be writing his.
Let me ask you,
credit him with too much.
this fight, this victory by Tottenham, is that going to be the new norm, or is yet again Mourinho showing flashes of what the team is capable of and then suddenly retreating when he faces especially the big team
No, Mourinho
into the
has been
Mourinho
playing
window.
that. He's been playing that since he came to Tottenham.
That's
Most of the time,
it's frustrating the fans.
last week, that was my argument with Mourinho. When Mourinho's teams have to break down teams, they have a problem.
Struggle.
Because they don't have what it takes to break down teams. His team is a counter-attacking team.
Yeah.
So if you lose guard and you bring your players forward, he will kill you. Or when there's a counter-attack, they'll kill
Will
you.
the Bale capture make any difference? Bale, Ronaldo.
It will. You know, a while ago we're talking about James Rodriguez and what he has brought to the Everton side. That bit of star power, it makes a lot of difference in football teams.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's not mince words. Bale might not be at his peak, but he is still a great player. And he makes a lot of difference. And he has a point to prove to Real for letting him go. He had his tiff with Zidane and all of that. So he has a personal point to prove. And Mourinho also has a point to prove, to show that he has made the right decision in going back to bring him in there. Because this is a player that he says he's comfortable having back in the team. So hopefully there should be some magic being
Well, it's just
worked
after
out
2 match
for
days.
them.
The season ahead in England can only get interesting. But let's go to Germany. And the demolition Bayern Munich started the season with leaves everybody wondering whether it's not going to be another stroll in the park for Bayern Munich. Meanwhile, Borussia Dortmund have a young team led by a 20-year-old, Haaland, and 17-year-olds in the team. It makes for an exciting mix. But the big question is whether they have enough to challenge Bayern Munich's dominance in Germany.
I mean, Germany Bayern have the experience, and Bayern's team is also quite young. I mean, if you look at the players, Serge Gnabry, Leroy Sané,
but you have Reina, who is 17. You have
Jude Bellingham,
who
you have
is
Sancho,
17.
you have Erling Haaland. Yes, but Bayern also have young players. I mean, Gnabry is not the oldest player.
And they have an English boy coming over who scored.
Pavard is young, Gnabry is young, Leroy Sané is young, Leroy Goretzka is young. They have Lucas Hernandez. They're all 23, 24.
Is it another Bayern season?
I think so. I think
This
so.
is getting
Bayern
boring.
Munich.
No,
it's not.
It's another
Bayern is a lovely mix. It's
They
a
call them
fine
FC
blend.
Hollywood.
It's a fine blend. I think that they excite you the way Barca used to excite back in the day. Now they seem to have found their rhythm. They have a fine blend of youth and experience. And I mean, they are just a delight to watch. They are the quality and the class.
And make
that
no
they bring
mistake,
onto
the 8-0
pitches.
was against Schalke. It wasn't against any mean team. And Bayern Munich just strolling. And Leroy Sané made an impressive debut for Bayern after his transfer from Manchester City during the summer. So that's Germany for now. You're going for our final break. When we come back, we'll wrap up here with other major stories happening in the world of sports. This is Off the Cuff here on MX24. Stay tuned. Welcome back. This is the final leg tonight, Off the Cuff. And so we are switching sports. For the last 15 minutes, we have been talking about football. It's time to switch to two other sports before we end tonight's show. First, tennis. And after the highs and lows of the US Open, well, the lows for people like Djokovic, who are looking for some solace in the clay court season ahead of Roland Garros, which will be played later. We pay attention to the Italian Open. And yesterday, well, the story wasn't really about the fact that Djokovic won. He won against Kofa. The main story was that he was given another warning for using obscenities, for breaking his rackets. And he says, this is just me. But, I mean, you can't just say this is you all the time.
No.
He's a great player, but that aspect of him, it got him thrown out of the US Open.
And it's becoming too rampant. It's becoming one too many. You know, he's losing his cool too easily lately. And a lot of the pundits have said that they were hopeful that the US Open incident would have injected some humility
Apparently
into
it didn't.
him. It didn't, you know. I mean, he's a fantastic player. He doesn't need these theatrics for anything.
Temper tantrum.
I know it adds some spice to the game for me, but I think that he can do away with that and still excel.
Just give the rackets away. There are young players who would die to have the quality
He likes
of
to
rackets.
play on the edge
So
a
just
bit,
bring them.
especially when things are not going on. He likes to be on the edge. Maybe that's what drives him. So it's a bit difficult to, if you try and nullify that, it might take away that a little bit from his
Well,
game.
Eva, the good news for him, though, is that he's at the cusp of being the record winner for the Italian Open. He will be eclipsing Nadal's record, primarily because of Diego Schwartzman, who dumped Nadal out of this. And this is a shock because Nadal on clay is everybody's
hardly.
nightmare.
Nobody predicted that outcome, but you got to give credit to Schwartzman. He came out guns blazing. He was fierce. He was aggressive from the outset. He knew that he had to go out fighting, and that game plan worked for him. And Nadal tried hard in the second set, but couldn't fight
Yeah,
back.
that is still
And I'm excited.
no solace to anybody. And nobody should have the false sense of security that Nadal would perhaps flop at the French
No,
Open.
I mean, when
'Cause this
Nadal
is the
gets
king
on
of
that
clay.
Roland Garros stuff, it's like his spirits just rise up to the occasion, and he's impervious at Roland Garros, and I'm sure he'll definitely be the winner this time. I don't see anybody on clay taking it, unless maybe Schwartzman has another. But you see, the beauty is that on the Roland Garros is going to be best of 5 sets.
Yeah.
That's where it's difficult to beat Nadal.
Yeah.
Best of 3 is easy.
Yeah.
But best of 5.
Guy
Definitely he's
specializes
gonna come
in
back.
blood
He will
and
come back.
sweat.
You need
5
to go-
sets.
yes.
Yeah,
You
that's
need
where
to go the
Nadal thrives
full
when it
haul.
comes to the
Yes,
openings.
it takes
and
a lot.
and the major tournaments.
All right,
Lot of
our
time.
final stop is in the United States and in the bubble in Florida. Disney World, they can afford to have a bubble where the NBA teams are into the final stages of the season. The Eastern Conference Final is taking place. The Western Conference Final is also taking place. This is the Western Conference Final between the LA Lakers and the Denver Nuggets, who shocked the Clippers in the semifinal. But they weren't going to shock the Lakers in the first match. It was a walk in the park
I mean, it was
for them.
Anthony Davis
37
and LeBron.
points.
Yeah, just decided to come out of their game, and these Lakers look determined. They really want to take. LeBron
Yeah.
is pushing them, and Denver, I think that they've gone a little bit beyond their normal level because everybody expected the Clippers to be a an LA team.
An LA final.
Yeah, but I mean, Denver did what Jamal Murray and Jokic have done very well, but I think against the power of LeBron, Anthony Davis,
Well, they've been
Kuzma.
written off once before, and they shocked everybody. So,
Lightning does
it's
not
dangerous.
strike twice in the NBA. I don't think so.
So
I
let's
think
go to
that
the Eastern Conference
the
final.
Eastern is where it's interesting.
That's where
I mean,
the
because
fight
of
is happening.
Miami and what Jimmy Butler is doing, Bam Adebayo, what they are doing in the Eastern Conference.
It's 2-1
amazing.
now. Celtics have
Yeah,
clawed
Celtics
back.
came back. I mean, yesterday they had to because otherwise, but I still think that Miami has the edge. I mean, the Celtic team, they seem to lack a little bit. I mean, you look at the power that Bam Adebayo, what Jimmy Butler are bringing to the Heat. I think that they are going to win the series and they are going to meet the Lakers in the final.
That will be something in the final of the NBA. And as they have shown, the whole bubble idea has been successful. The playoffs were said, it was said that the playoffs were never going to look the same because of the absence of the crowds and everything. But a sort of basketball, perhaps when the crowds are not around, it's pressure off the back
At least you
of
see
players.
Drake
And we've seen them excel.
dancing around. That's why the Raptors
That
left the
annoys
league.
everybody. All right. Yeah, thank you very much for joining us tonight. Eva, it's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys. Thank you very much, you who joined us at home, joined us on Facebook, and also joined us on Twitter. It's been another exciting edition of Off the Cuff here on MX24. We'll see you same time next week. Have a fantastic week. Happy Founders Day to you. Enjoy your holiday.